Hello, everybody. I am attempting a screencast to give you a review session of some of the stuff that we covered this week on paper 3, specifically how to attack the compare and contrast question, where you've got two text types and a similar theme. So I suggest that you have this text, which is on Canvas, about writing novels in front of you. And if it helps you follow along, take notes. And I think what I'd encourage you to do after you've listened to this and engaged with the text is to write a full practice essay, or at least a few paragraphs, and get feedback from me. So when you look at this, first thing you need to do is unpack the question, and it's going to prompt you to everything that's in the prompt is going to help you think about genre, audience, purpose, right? And in your compare and contrast, everything needs to be linked to what is genre, what is this text type, what are its conventions, and how, in what ways does it reinforce or challenge those conventions? Audience, who is this for, and how does the language, how does the style appeal to, resonate, or is it written for this audience? And purpose, what is this text trying to do? What is the author trying to do? What is the speaker trying to do? So we know that they're about writing fiction, right? But text A, which we'll look at first, is a book called Writing a Novel, part of this Teach Yourself series. So what that tells me, think about a book called Writing a Novel. Who are the people who would be interested in this book? Would-be writers, people who are starting writing a book, people who are interested in writing a book. So it's a very specific kind of audience, right? Think of yourself going to a bookstore. Is this the kind of book that you'd be drawn to? If you're not a budding author, then probably not. So it's going to be written with that audience in mind, people who are in the craft or about to start the craft or wondering how to do this thing. I'm freaking out, give me advice, etc. And it's also a book, so we know it's going to be it's a slow read. It's going to be jam packed with ideas, information, and anecdotes. Because it's a book, you assume that the audience is going to work with this text, keep this text, engage with this text over a long period of time. It's not like a quick, snappy read. Compared to text B, so that's kind of our genre audience, and we haven't read the purpose yet, but I assume it's you can infer that it's going to be about teaching you, instructing you, right? As it says over here, teach you how to write a book, perhaps give you some encouragement. There might be a couple of different purposes at play. Text B, on the other hand, is an extract from an online literary magazine. Two things to pay attention to here. One is that it's online. When you see online, you should immediately be aware that it's easily accessible. It's for kind of a broad, maybe even global audience, right? So when things are online, you can easily discover them. They can pop up on newsfeed. So they're written probably with this kind of general global online audience in mind. However, and again, you can be nuanced. You can talk about the fact that there are two types of audience: a primary and a secondary audience, a proximate and a more distant audience. So we have this kind of broader audience, but we also have a more specific kind of audience. Who are the people who are looking up, who are interested in literary magazines, right? This is literature buffs, scholars, students of literature, teachers of literature, right? It's a subgroup of people who want to read about hot new books, what authors are saying, words from authors, right? It's not a general audience. So keep this in mind and be comfortable articulating that there are two different audiences at work here, and that might frame some of your analysis. So we know that this is going to be an article by Radhika Jones, and it includes this interview with this writer, Peter Carey. So, spoiler alert, we know that a potential audience might also be fans of Peter Carey, right? This writer, this author, Peter Carey. Imagine if you saw an interview in a magazine with your favorite artist or author, right? You would be drawn to it because you want to hear, about, behind the scenes of this person that you admire. So GAP, genre, audience, purpose, are important as important framing devices as you dig into the text. And that's why if you look here at the bottom on this graphic organizer, as a process, I encourage you to really think about writing down what is this text type and what do I know about its conventions? Who is it for and how do I know? What is the purpose of this text? What is it trying to do? And again, you might have one or two purposes, right? It might be to inform and persuade, think about the verbs. But If there are a couple of different audiences, there are a couple of different purposes, twofold purposes, that's fine. Write about it and articulate the tone. And you'll notice here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, what I'm calling features. You want 7 points of comparison, 7 things to notice about language and style that will inform your body paragraphs and your comparison. Good answers typically have about 7 body paragraphs. So what is feature number 1? What's it doing in the text? What's its function? What's its effect? And why is it there? And then you're linking it back to, in terms of why it's there, or what's it there, why is it there for the audience, how does it reinforce or support the purpose, or how does it align with or challenge the conventions of the genre, and you kind of think about how it compares with text B, right? So for each feature, you might have register here, you might have the use of an extended metaphor here, so each of those features, you're doing 2 things. What is its purpose? That's your point. What's its purpose in the text? Evidence. Name the thing. It's extended metaphor. It's register. It's use of first person singular pronouns, whatever, and their overall purpose. I hope this makes sense to people. And kind of this diagram helps you see that you're always linking to audience or purpose or genre. 7 is your magic number. So after you've read this text, the things to point out, right, is in no particular order. I'm going to go through the different points, right? You've got this extended metaphor of writing a novel as kind of a seed growing, right? A germination and growing. You can see the metaphor starts around here and ends somewhere here, right? That's one key feature. What is that? That's an extended metaphor that's present. You're going to put that down here as a key feature. What is its function? I think understanding that you're writing a book, Watts is writing a book, and has time to set up and slowly develop this metaphor. That's how it links to genre, right? Being aware of audiences, right, and the audience of would-be writers, kind of thinking metaphorically, right? This makes sense. This idea of a long, slow, extended metaphor also makes sense for that writer, and of course you have time to plan. I would think of this, that's point number 1, that extended metaphor. Feature number 2 is, when you kind of open up with these 2 questions, how long is the gap between first idea and word? How much time between germination and appearance of a seedling? I see those and I think it's a rhetorical question. So I'm drawing my reader in, but I'm also addressing the kind of the insecurities, perhaps the anxieties that my audience, would-be writers, are feeling. If you're buying a book called Writing the Novel, or Help Me Write a Novel, you might be feeling these sort of anxieties, and so the author is addressing them directly and bringing you into the conversation with these rhetorical questions later to allay your fears, to reassure you that it's going to be fine if you persevere. Right, so reassurance and perseverance is part of the purpose of this this text. So that's point number 2. We've talked about the extended metaphor, and we've talked about the rhetorical questions there. On that note of engaging you as a reader in, I'm going to point to the direct speech, the kind of little bit informal direct speech. So it starts over here. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I have to start somewhere, and then you fall into the story. So here, it's almost like you're bringing the insecurities again. You're acknowledging the insecurities, the uncertainties that your audience might feel. There's that kind of casual, a bit informal register, and in that moment, right? But think about what that does for the audience. So that inclusion of direct speech, that kind of it's almost confessional, isn't it? Like, oh my, and the author is confiding in you and resonating and understanding what it is you're feeling. So that's point number 3. I think it's worth noting the, sorry, I've lost my train of thought here. For point number 4, I'd note the imperatives, right? Imperatives are sort of commands. So anytime she tells you, trust your instinct. Remember, a novel is a machine, right? She's giving you these, don't force it. These kind of clear, concise commands, right? Those imperatives, those are instructions. Again, we're thinking about what the purpose is. It's to instruct and to inform and to encourage. But it also comes, from a place of, this is a person who's an expert. When you write in imperatives, typically if you see imperatives in a magazine article or whatever, the verbs that command, that tell you to do something, imperative statements, it usually suggests that the writer is coming from a place of authority. So imperatives is point number 4. There's a place in which words are personified, right? It's this idea of words being given a human-like quality, right? This idea that what are the words? What are the words doing? Keep them. Sorry, I've lost it here. Anyway, you'll find it somewhere. But the personification of words is it's a literary device. Again, it is this idea of having time to set up this because it's a book, thinking about our genre again. You have time to kind of set up these complex features. So personification of words is another point. I would say some low frequency lexis, right? This idea of balancing your preparation with spontaneity. I can't find it on your screen here. Sorry, it's difficult for me to annotate, but here it is. Balancing preparation and spontaneity, right? Not typically. You can tell that that's written by an educated person, if that makes sense, right? It's not common speak. I think you can make an argument, right? An author, an expert on the topic who's pitching to people who are also going to be budding writers. So again, makes a little bit of sense there. I also notice another thing to compare here is this repetition here, this kind of 3-part or triad phonological phrase, falling, falling, falling. A triadic phonological phrase that's kind of rhythmic. It's something you can even say, typically you expect this kind of stuff, this kind of rhythm, this kind of pain in spoken language, maybe in a speech or something. But here, it creates a nice rhythm to the sentence. If you can do this enough, falling, 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 you'll find you've written something which looks like a novel. So that's a cool thing to notice there. Pronouns, right? Deliberate, the you, the you've, the you, right? It's again linked to our purpose, right? I am encouraging, I'm reassuring, I am pushing you, I am teaching you how to do this thing. So that's one thing that is worth commenting on, as well as the tone. So you see how we got, I think at this point we should have almost 7, if not 7 bits. The tone is one that's positive, it's encouraging because that's linked to the goal, to guide, to support would-be writers. And your job is to find specifically 2 or 3 specific pieces of evidence that show the tone. So what words show that the author's attitude is encouraging, if that makes sense. And I also think, there's a bit of vague language here. So you've written something and this idea of somewhere. So it's somewhere in here, you've written something that looks like, one can argue, you've got to start somewhere. There's this, it's a little bit vague, and I wonder what you can talk about the fact that it makes sense because the writer is trying to paint this kind of abstract image of what it's like to start a novel. It's hard to speak with that precision, but it might be worth mentioning the vague language. So I'm conscious of time here, so I want to quickly accelerate, but you can hopefully, those different points that we've talked about